And so I'm going to welcome Annette Ward. She's going to be with us today. I'm so excited. Annette and I have known each other, I think, most of my professional career and have started several things together. She was one of our first school-based therapists, and we used to work together with families back in the day when New River did family preservation. Always really respected your work, Annette, and the way you connect with people, colleagues, and families. And I'm so excited to hear from you today about something brand new to most of us, although you've been working hard on this for a couple of years. So thanks for being with us. And if you will, I'm going to turn it over to you for you to introduce yourself however you want to be known and your roles in the community, and we'll get started.
Thank you, Denise. Yes, we have known each other for a long time, and I keep counting the years and try to figure out how did that happen. That just couldn't have gone by that quickly. And so I have a lot of respect for you and your work too, Denise. And so I really appreciate opportunities to collaborate with people, and we've collaborated with so many different things. So yes, I am a licensed clinical social worker. I'm also a licensed clinical addiction specialist. In my previous life, before academia, I did a lot of work in the Public Mental Health Center, as Denise mentioned. But I also have had a private practice, and I do independent contract work currently with Mount Vernon Baptist Church. And then I also teach in the social work department at ASU. And then most recently, I have been providing services or helping students provide services through the Social Work Care Collaborative. So I'm going to just set up my screen to share with you guys. I had some slides to go through. I may abandon them at some point so we can just talk. But if you'll give me just a second, I would like to be able to do that. Okay, can you see that okay?
I can.
Okay, thank you. So as I said, I'm a senior lecturer at Appalachian State. And in 2019, in the spring, we had the opportunity to provide services in the clinic. And so I'm not sure how much you are aware of the clinic and what the Social Work Care Collaborative is. So I thought I would talk about that for a little while. This is a program that's developed and supervised by the Department of Social Work at Appalachian State. We provide services in collaboration with others in the community and in our college and in the university. Our services are provided by our ASU social work interns, but supervised by myself. And then next semester, I have the honor of Dr. Ben Alexander Eitzman to join me in the clinic as well to be providing supervision. So this is a unique placement in that I don't necessarily carry a caseload myself. And so the students do the work, but I work with them daily. I provide support. I can be there for crisis. I do training with them. So they get a lot of work that is independent, but then is also collaborative. And it also provides a quality field experience on the micro, meso, and macro levels. So working individually with people, working with families, with small groups, but then also in communities and changing policies and things like that. So our umbrella organization is the Beaver College of Health Sciences. And so both the Department of Social Work and the Institute are a part of the Beaver College of Health Sciences. And so for those of you who may not be familiar with the Institute, I just thought I would run through a couple of things that they have on their website about who they are. The Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina Institute for Health and Human Services provides multidisciplinary research opportunities, clinical services, community outreach, and training programs related to holistic health and well-being with the overarching goal of improving lives through transformative social, environmental, and healthcare advances. And so they do a lot of work in the community. I see Mary Cheryl is on here with us. Mary Cheryl is an integral part there. She's the associate director, I believe, of that program. And she helps with things like Girls on the Run and other programs, HAND. There's lots and lots of things that Mary Cheryl's involved in, but we have multiple programs and multiple things going on there. But we're working on also building research relevant to rural health, creating sustainable culture of health through the regional community partnerships in education and services. So having said that, when we've had services through the Institute before, through the University Hall, and services that are provided there for many years. But then when we developed the program through Leon Levine, we were able to provide some additional services because we created a clinic within that building when we started the new building. So social work had been talking for some time. We've always had collaborative relationships in the community with various projects, but this was a unique opportunity for us to build additional services and have more of a central location. And so we're housed there in Leon Levine. We also have an office in University Hall. And we tried to start out with figuring out what's needed. How can we help? And so, as I mentioned before, we have programs and activities. We work with communication disorders, audiology. We have autism screenings. There's counseling for faculty and staff, music therapy, nutrition, psychology. Of course, now we have the Social Work Care Collaborative, SBIRT training. Some of you have heard of SBIRT. I've been one of the people who helped develop SBIRT and implement that in our college and in the community in multiple agencies. As I mentioned, there's Girls on the Run, HANDS, there's many programs. And so you can go to that website and look at more detail in what's being provided there. So then focusing in more on the Social Work Care Collaborative, we provide services, obviously. We're trying to support members of our community while we're providing the students with this quality field experience with activities, as I said before, on the individual, groups, community, and organizational levels. And so we want to do this in a way that partners with other departments in the Beaver College of Health Sciences, with other colleges, other members in the community, other organizations and agencies. And we're focusing on filling areas of service gaps and assisting other groups in meeting or extending their identified service goals. Right now, we take those internal referrals. So if CSD has a referral for us, then they will send them our way and we'll follow up, and we try to provide collaborative services with them. Or audiology, we've had several referrals from different sources. Additionally, we have contracts in place with Watauga County Schools is another one. And so we are providing services for Watauga County Schools. So that's typically how we get our referrals. And so if agencies are interested in contracting services, they would just need to reach out to me and we can try to develop an additional contract in the future. But we're definitely not interested in trying to be in competition with anyone. We're not trying to duplicate existing services. We want to, again, address these service gaps and provide these training opportunities for the students. So we have lots and lots of services that we have been providing. So these are just the general services that we can offer. And then I'll go into more detail about some of the specific projects. But we have assessments. And so this is common for social work in general. So we can provide assessments. We provide intervention and treatment, and that includes counseling and therapy. We have supportive and goal-oriented counseling, advocacy. We want to advocate, especially on in relationship to marginalized populations. We provide training and education, professional education. We also can do resource and referral, so referrals to relevant ASU programs or community agencies or services. We provide case management and systems and services navigation. We can provide consultation for faculty, staff, students, and parents, but also for community and organizational development. We love to be able to participate in those activities as well. Now I brought this up. Most of you know what this is. You have seen it before, but I really like it because it is a really nice picture of how all of this ties together and how childhood trauma and things that go on in environments and the community circumstances are all tied together. And social work, likes to look at all of these things. That's one of the things that I love about social work. It doesn't focus in on just one small thing. We look at a person more holistically. And so we can address things that are up here on the above the ground level, above the root system, such as mental illness or incarceration or domestic violence or substance abuse. And we can deal with all of those things on an individual level, but also on a macro level. But then we can look at these broader concepts and we think about how are these things happening in our community, in our state, and on a national level, on a global level, in a way that impacts the work that we do with families and individuals, and how can we make those changes. So we think about poverty, and we think about discrimination, and we think about there's any kind of disruption. Talk about a disruption. COVID-19 is like one of the biggest disruptions we've had in 100 years. So we look at how these things impact the individuals that we serve, as well as some of the ACEs that they may have had growing up, and the intersectionality of it all. And so some of the work that we do, the service navigation, it's related to some of these things. How can we help people find better housing? How do we help them connect to education so maybe they can advance in their work or in their careers or have a different kind of career? We also think about poverty and how we can help people get access to those services. So all of this is integrated into what we do. So with that backdrop, we have lots and lots of programs that we're doing. Up until December of last year, we were working primarily with the community and services in the community. So even though we had services in conjunction with, say, audiology or autism, our focus was on community members and how we could better support people in the community. And then in January of this year, we had the opportunity to expand. And so now we provide services not only to community members, but to university students as well. So we have a contract with Watauga County Schools, and we provide services to Watauga County Schools. And also specifically this year, we focused in on Watauga Virtual Academy because of so many challenges that the students were facing and trying to stay caught up working in a virtual environment. You know, we had parents who had to work, and kids were left home, had to be sometimes, to try to do their schoolwork virtually on their own, just getting behind, trying to keep up. Video games are a little bit more interesting than math sometimes. So we were trying to help them get connected with their classrooms, and also to try to bring everybody together. So it wasn't just trying to connect with the student from Watauga County Schools, but it was also connecting with their parents. It was connecting with their teachers, with their social workers, with their counselors, so that we could provide additional support to them and try to come up with group solutions, and rather than trying to expect the kid to do everything all on their own when they're 10 years old. We also have partnered with WCCI and helped out with presentations. Each semester I've found in this particular program, the Social Work Care Collaborative, changes, and we provide different kinds of services depending on what the needs are of the organization. So in the past, we've helped with different types of groups. We've assisted with outreach, going to business, trying to encourage more people to come in. We have provided the WCCI presentations in the community, virtually, face-to-face, in classrooms. And we have been very successful this year in the classrooms. We've been able to, the students have been able to help provide WCCI presentations to more than 300 people just in classrooms this year. So we were really excited about being able to get the word out and do that work this year. I recognize that each year will look a little different. So what we do next year may still change. The students also help with developing or preparing for the conference each year, and sometimes they help in presenting during the conference as well. One of the things that we also provide, we provide lots of assessments and lots of different ways, but I highlighted SBIRT, and which is screening, brief intervention, and referral to treatment, and social determinants of health, because I feel like that those are something that is not offered everywhere yet, but are still very important in service provision. So our students are all trained in those and can provide those screenings and then provide services based on some of those screenings. And we also help with aging well and caregiver services. We've been participating in helping with trainings. We help with screening of, well, across the lifespan. We just had a meeting today about this topic. We're even thinking about how we might need to modify the name, but it's about aging well over the lifespan. And we do these screenings so that people can get a baseline of where they are, or if there are any concerns in any areas such as nutrition or balance or behavioral health, then we can offer potential services in the community or with ASU that might benefit them to ameliorate any possible concerns or to just help them continue to age well and to be healthy as we move forward in our lives. And students help a lot with screenings on the front end. They help with organization of the materials, they help with planning, they help with scheduling. Then they actually help do some of the screenings, but then they also follow up at the end and can do some outreach and additional support if needed, especially in areas of the social determinants of health. We like to work with diverse groups and think about how we can better support diverse groups. We've started several different projects, and some things have just taken hold faster than others, and we've had better opportunities than others. We want to continue to think about how we can support our Latinx population through our program, the Black community, LGBTQ, lots of ways that we can reach out to different populations. So we have some ideas in those areas that continue to be in development. But I would say that the way that we have spent the majority of our time focusing on diversity has been through HAND, the Hub for Autism and Neurodiversity, autism screenings, and one of my favorites that we've been working on lately is the Teaching Every Child project. Oh, I saw Karen on here too. Karen Hayes has been a partner with us in several different projects, but she has been, she and Diane Coffey have been great partners in this project. And what we recognized is that there are so many children out there who have diverse needs, and our systems are not always designed and set up to support them in the best way possible. And many of us who've been working with children for a long time already know that. It's not a surprise. But we're focusing in on those kids who have maybe some sort of neurodiversity. Maybe it's autism, it could be anxiety, depression, those kinds of things. And unfortunately, some of our kids fall through the cracks. Maybe they don't meet the full criteria for an IEP for some reason, but yet they still have some challenges. Sometimes teachers will report that they don't feel as confident in teaching certain students with neurodiversity, that they hadn't had the training that they felt like would be helpful for them moving forward. And this is not about blaming anybody. It's really about how our overall system is set up and the curriculum that's in place as mandated by our state for what teachers receive in their training. And so we came together and thought, how can we help this situation? How can we provide support to this population? And so we have been working together to create training modules that can be for teachers who are graduating through the College of Education, potentially also to be offered to teachers in Watauga County schools, to help them get a better understanding of different types of neurodiversity. So that has been very exciting. We started out with just myself and Diane and one student talking about this topic. And now we have, and of course, Karen's been part of that as well. And so now we also have several people from Watauga County Schools partnering with us. We have the College of Education helping with the curriculum, but we also now have people from the Department of Public Instruction working with us on this. Diane has been talking with Jim Denny from psychology. So we have this nice group of people who are all behind this project and see it as a possibility to reach lots of teachers, lots of families. And one of the key things about this is helping the teachers to understand the fact that they are going to need more training when they graduate. Many of them don't even know that what they don't know. So we're really excited about being able to reach out to more people, and our consultants from the Department of Public Instruction would really like us to expand this beyond just our county and our students at ASU. So this is something that will definitely continue. So let's see, what else is on my list here? So we provide services to ASU students as well. This semester, we've started lots of things. We've been working in collaboration with multiple groups on campus to help us determine what are those gaps in services, how do we not duplicate. So we work with Wellness and Prevention, the Counseling Center, the Early Intervention teams, let's see, who else? The Dean of Students Office, Online and Transfer Student Services. That's the, used to be distance education. And so through all of these, oh, and University Housing, and through all of these partnerships and conversations, we came up with different ways we can support students in different ways, ASU students. So we started a grief group called Moving Through Mourning that meets weekly. We also have several transition groups in plans are being, sorry about that, got tongue tied again. We have several transition groups that are in the process of being planned. And so those types of transition groups are for, say, for example, students coming in the fall, they're freshmen, they've never really been away from home, they don't really know how to take care of themselves yet. And so we want to try to help them as much as possible to get acclimated. Also, we're thinking about people who are working, going to school, and have families all at the same time, potentially. How do we provide some assistance to some of the non-traditional students? So we want to provide a group for them. We've had some drop-in groups. We can also provide counseling, service navigation, and case management to the distance ed online folks. They typically do not have as much access to our counseling center and wellness and prevention because those students who are typically considered distance ed do not pay the health services fees. So this is a huge gap that we thought that we could help support students in. And the RA peer support community is really exciting. This is something we've been meeting regularly with the RAs and talking about what we're providing, but also finding out what their needs are. This has been a really hard year for resident assistants. They're in these residence halls. Their job that used to be so much fun about gathering people together and having fun activities, all of a sudden is also now about put your mask on. You got to stay 6 feet apart. Oh, we got to clean everything down. And their jobs and their pressure and the pressures from their jobs have gotten much worse. So we've been trying to think, how can we support this group? And we've thought about and asked and inquired about what's been tried before. And so now it seems like we have this idea for this peer support community. They're calling it the neighborhood with RA in the middle as their group. So the RAs are actually working with us and helping to plan it. And it will be for RAs by RAs. And it is similar to our collegiate recovery community that we have on campus. But in this sense, it's focused on resident assistance. And the students are very excited about this. The RAs are very excited about this. And this is supposed to start in September as well. And then I have the word other up there. Sometimes just whatever comes up is what we do. Kind of like Denise was talking earlier, and she said, oh, maybe you could present on. We have lots of that where people say in a meeting, oh, you know what we really need? And then social work says, oh, maybe we can help with that. So there are lots of things that we like to be able to partner with and just join in the fun of developing programs and helping to further service goals. And so we do have lots of student learners. We have BSWs, we have first and second year MSWs, and I really like that because then we have this broad range of services that we can provide. We work together as a team, whether it's working with individuals and families, or whether it's projects. We do like the students to have a lead role, either with their client or with their project, but then they still work as a team. And so they go out and do some independent work, and then they come back and talk with me and the rest of the group, we come up with ideas together, and then we go back out and we do some work independently, and then we come back together. And so it's been a really good thing this year to have that teamwork within the students that are in the social work care collaborative, but as well as working with people in the community. All of our students are required to go through trauma training. So I have modules set up on our Moodle system, As You Learn, so that students can learn this every semester. Denise actually helped me get it set up the very first semester so we could make sure that the students had a really good understanding and training around what is trauma, what are ACEs, what is resiliency, and what does that then mean for us in our service provision through the Social Work Care Collaborative. And it's been really interesting to have them do a forum after they do their trauma training so that they could talk together and with me really on what they've learned and how that affects them individually. I also talk about it later after they've done the trauma training on As You Learn so that we can see how that might mean for them as an individual, as a student, but also as a budding professional. And then we take that knowledge from the trauma training and we apply it using strengths-based, solution-focused, person and environment framework when working with others. And then we try to apply it. How do we apply it in supervision? Formally, I may have certain days that it's scheduled where we talk about trauma and how that might affect the clients that they serve. But also we talk about it informally. They may just be talking about a client situation and I might say, well, I wonder what their ACE score is. Just from the assessment, there's sometimes we get so much just from the social assessment, even if we haven't done a full ACEs screening in the moment, we can gather it from their social history. And then we start talking about, okay, so then how does that then inform you and how they're either how they may be responding to you or not responding to you in a way that you expect them to, or how might that inform how you would want to work with them moving forward? We also talk about the intersectionality of it all. We have so many different things in our lives and we're not all just one thing, and how all those things can overlap and intersect and how that is individualized by person. And so we do talk about ACEs and we do a lot of work around ACEs, but we look beyond that. Denise and I have talked about this before too. There are so many different types of trauma in addition to adverse childhood experiences. And so we talk about, okay, here's where they are with adverse childhood experiences. Now let's see what it looks like when you add in other problems. Let's look at what's happened with social justice over the past year. And if they are a person who is a person of color, how might that affect them? Then we also look at, okay, we also are in a pandemic. Let's talk about how that's affecting them. Oh, they've just lost their job. Let's talk about that. Oh, now they have a medical trauma. Let's talk about that. And so all those things get combined. So let me see my notes. I've just started talking here and I've forgotten to look at all my notes. I think I'll just pause there in the slides. I have some more, but I just want to see if anybody had questions or if Denise, you had specific questions.
For people who don't know where Levine is, it's the new building across from the hospital. For those of us who come in and out of there frequently, it's so familiar to us, but it's that new ASU building across from the hospital. And so I didn't even, honestly, I was teaching in that building and didn't even realize there was an interprofessional clinic down on the first floor. So for some of you, this may be, you know, I didn't even know what that building was or what went on there, or that there was a clinic in there. So, and then the idea that it's this, we've got this part segment of the clinic that's doing social work in a trauma-informed way is a really exciting thing. And one huge thing that you may be going to cover eventually is talk to me about the cost.
Oh, we don't charge for our services. That's one of the benefits, I think, of having student interns. But that also means we don't have a budget. So sometimes that can be challenging. The university allows time, gives me a course release, or actually multiple course releases, so that I can provide this supervision. And so that's the cost to the university. Beyond that, we don't really have a budget. I think we can get certain things through the department, like staplers and things like that. They do provide us with equipment, a computer down there, so that we can provide services. But the thing is, we have students who really want to learn, and they are so excited about being able to participate and collaborate with what's going on in the community and feel a part of the change, that we can utilize their energy and their interest and the opportunities for them to learn. And because, we know that students aren't paid, and it ends up being a really great opportunity, because then we can serve people who might not otherwise get served. And so students are able to help with engagement. They're able to help identify needs in the community, what the gaps are. They help do the research. They help develop and implement interventions, so they have access to the ASU database. Evaluation, they can then evaluate the services and see what else can be done. And I think that also is a unique thing, is how many of us would like to just be able to get out there and work and not worry about where the money comes from? That's what I'm getting to do. I mean, there's a little bit of worry, but for some projects that needs to have some more things going on, but we can write grants. There are all sorts of things that we can do with the things that are provided. And that's one of the things that I like to do, is see what is the framework, what do we have available, and then what can we come up with that will help this population or this group or this organization, thinking outside of the box.
And so not having to charge also means what for insurance?
Well, we don't bill the insurance, so.
Don't have to have it.
Mm-mm.
So Candace had put in the chat, is there a email or website that you could stick in there so people can go if they want to look up more information?
Yes.
So no cost for services, don't have to have insurance. I think most of us know, working with people, that is so unusual in these days. We're always trying to figure out if somebody has insurance or has Medicaid, and who takes Medicaid and insurance, and can we refer them for services? I know I've had a lot of emails and conversations with people in WCCI about who's got openings, what insurance are they taking? Do they take Medicaid? And so knowing that there's a place where we can send people where you don't have to have insurance or pay is pretty revolutionary, I think. I was going to ask, and so referrals, you may be getting to that, and I may be getting ahead of you if I am, I'm sorry, but can anybody make a referral, and how do they do that?
So if you work for ASU, we can take internal referrals without any kind of question. I do have a referral form that I can send out to people that we would like people to fill out the information. If you're with a different agency, we ask that you contact me directly so that I can set up a contract with your agency. That way, that's just through the attorneys and what we're legally obligated to do. So given the fact that we have, that this is a free service, there might be at some point where we have to put a cap on, simply because there's only so many students and so many hours in the clinic. But at this point, we are still taking referrals starting in the fall. So I do need to mention that we are closed in the summer and on the university breaks. And then in the fall, I'm hoping to have 8 students again. I'm still in the midst of interviewing and getting that set up. And so those students, again, will have a BSW, first year and second year MSW students to help provide these services. And then when we move forward in the fall, I will train all of them. It usually takes several weeks to make sure they have a good solid training before they start working with clients. So usually by September, we start reaching out to clients and providing the groups and things like that.
And so one of the things that I've really liked, Annette, is that continuum of services, and how there's BSWs who do more of the education, awareness, case management kinds of stuff, and then MSWs maybe doing more of the counseling type of things. And so just want people to be aware. Annette is one of the most ethical, conscientious people that I've ever worked with, and really takes great care to make sure that not only are ASU students not overwhelmed by the type of cases that they're working, but also that clients are getting what they need in the way that they need it. So yeah, I think sometimes we think about interns doing things, we think they're in over their head, or they're not being properly supervised, or they don't have the skill to do the tasks that are being assigned. And so, Annette, you do a beautiful job of making sure that everybody's well taken care of, and doing what, pushing them for growth, but without putting anyone at risk. So I've always really appreciated that.
I appreciate that, Denise, because I've always seen myself as a clinical person first and a teacher second. And so my heart is really with making sure that whatever we provide is provided well, and that the services are done well. But then also, I really love these students. They have such energy, and they have so many great ideas. And I want to be sure that the services that the students are providing are quality for their learning. I want them to see what it means to provide good social work. And so we have a whole process and training on professionalism as well. So I think that is definitely something that is important to me, is to make sure that whatever we're doing, we do it well. Now, I can't promise that there won't be setbacks. People are people. We have students. They're still learning. They might miss a phone call. They might have to learn from some mistakes. But we also talk about, okay, how do you come back from that? How do you prevent it in the future? How do we make sure that we can put in some safeguards if they're, but for the most part, I feel like things have gone really well, and they do get supervision. They have my cell phone number. They can call me at any time. They have my email. I meet with them almost daily. And also Dr. Rankert, who is department chair and also a licensed clinical social worker, is my backup in case they can't reach me. So they have lots of ways to get support. I also will sometimes join them on the sessions, and I'll spot check. I'll do some role plays with them, as well as go in with them on sessions occasionally, so I can see how they're doing. They do process recording, so I can also learn more about how they're specifically providing the services. And actually in the clinic, when the clients are in agreement, they have cameras, and I can turn, and I tell the client, and we tell the student that I can watch them while they do their sessions sometimes, and we can record it and we can go back and review it. So they have lots of opportunity for feedback and growth.
One thing that just occurred to me, speaking both to not duplicating services and to taking really good care of both providers and clients, you don't do crisis intervention work. And so there's been a lot of care about what type of client is appropriate for the services. And if it's someone who is frequently in crisis or has suicidal ideations, then that's probably not the best referral. And there's other places already set up in the community for those types of needs.
That's correct. So the Counseling Center has their services, and ASU has their services. And of course, we have the National Suicide Lines, and we have Daymark, and other people can provide crisis services. So no, we're not someone to just say, oh, I have a client in crisis, let me call, don't put us on that list. However, if there were to be a situation in which there is a crisis, the students are trained to handle it, because I don't want them to be out on a home visit with a client and there be a crisis and not have any idea what to do. So, and that's also part of why I'm on call. So we don't invite that in, but we're prepared in case it does come up.
That's good. So one of the things I wanted, you've really talked about ways that y'all build resilience, because when we're doing Wednesday conversations, we talk about how do we see trauma? How do we help others build resilience? How do we stay well? And I really think you've addressed a lot of that building resilience piece. But can you talk a little bit about the types of trauma that you've seen and the people that you've worked with?
It varies. We do have a lot of people who have families that have had abuse or neglect growing up. We've had people who have experienced not having the adequate services that they need. They've experienced some verbal abuse, all sorts of things. You know, it's a wide variety because we serve people. I didn't mention this. We serve people all the way from young children all the way up to aging adults, and everybody in between. And it's really been interesting. One of the things that we did was at one point when we were doing our aging well screenings and we were going to senior centers, we started doing some of the ACEs screening and resiliency. So we make sure whenever we do the ACEs screening, we also pair it with resiliency so that people can have some hope, and we give them handouts about what do you do if you realize you have a high ACE score and what does that mean. And interestingly, many of the older adults didn't really want to talk about it. They would talk with me about their substance use. They would talk with me about their anxiety, especially if I worded it correctly. They would talk with me about those things. But the other thing we decided is we decided we wanted to do the ACEs screenings and talk about those things when we had more time. So if they had 12 other screenings to do, we most likely didn't do the ACEs in that moment. We would come back to it later and maybe partner with them later to go back to that, because they need more time to process it many times. When they start realizing, oh my gosh, I've had all of these ACEs my whole life, and now I'm realizing that maybe that's why I'm having some of these medical problems. They need more time to process it and then think about, okay, what does that now mean for me? I may be 70 years old. So then what does that mean for me and how is it helpful? The students also helped develop a handout sheet, a little sheet that they could give to people after the trainings that they do, the presentation, but also after the screenings that just says, here are some things that you can do that will help you ameliorate some of the problems that come from adverse childhood experiences. And that's been really helpful, I think, to say not only, okay, yes, here's this heavy thing, but now here's some hope. And also here's your resiliency score. Here's some things that shows and things you can continue doing that will help you moving forward and be healthier. So I'm not sure that I exactly answered your question, but.
You did. I was going to ask you something else. Oh, one of the, just talking specifically about either types of trauma or particular cases, one of the things when you and I were brainstorming, like, what is it that I need that is maybe not part of what I consider to be my regular, I'm supposed to be doing school social work. So I'm supposed to be helping kids with getting homework done and making passing grades. But very frequently, I have parents in my office that are in my office every day or every week or call about the same things or need 2 to 3 to 4 hours a week of my time. And I feel compelled to do that ethically, but that's really not technically what I'm supposed to be doing. Although in my mind, if the parent's not in good shape, then frequently the kid's not. But yes, that was one of the things that I liked the most about what y'all were doing, is thinking about which one of those parents could maybe not qualify under other things. We all know how qualification criteria can be really restrictive. But having people there who can give them the time that they need and the time that they deserve to help them get them to a more stable place through types of case management or support.
Yes, I've always felt, and I'm sure that it has to do with being a social worker, but also all those years doing family preservation and doing intensive in-home work, we treat not just the individual, we treat the whole person and we treat their system. And we know what kinds of relationships there are between the systems and how those things can be a strength, but it also can be an area of focus for intervention. And we definitely know that the parents may need those interventions to try to help them with their past traumas. And so, yes, we may get an individual referral, but we also think about, okay, how can we help the system as a whole? And something else I think that I like to do is, I have a slide here that I didn't show. I called it practicing what we're preaching. So one of the things I do try is to encourage them to do some of those self-care things, some of the things that are listed. Get counseling if you need to, take breaks, take walks, work outside if you can, if you're able. And then just providing encouragement for the students when they tell me voluntarily that they have been taking care of themselves in some way. And I just really try to applaud them in that, because I think that also as providers, we don't take care of ourselves very well sometimes. And if we can start early trying to encourage them to try to take care of themselves, then maybe that will also help them to encourage others to take care of themselves. And I think that's part of what I really like about working with the students and talking about trauma from the very first day is I want them to know about the subject. I want them to be able to tell others. I want them to be understanding with the clients that they serve. I also want them to be understanding of themselves. And I just think that that whole thing will create an overall experience that will help them to carry it with them as they go out into the field and to continue thinking that way, that it doesn't just stop just because they're not in the clinic anymore.
Yeah, I don't know if you were able to listen to the opening speaker for the conference this year, but she was talking about trauma and secondary trauma and said, expecting it not to touch you is like walking in the rain and not expecting to get wet. And I've thought about that several times since then. That was I do visuals to help me understand things. And I was like, more than walking in the rain, like most of us are swimming in a pool. Like we are immersed in trauma and grief all day long. And that it was, I had never thought about, we need to approach it as if it's expected that this is going to have a toll on you. I think up until now, I've really had this impression that you need to be prepared for this in case it comes along. Mm-hmm. And the way she said that was just like, you know, you need to expect that it's going to have an effect on you and be prepared for it, you know, and be actively proactive because it's coming. And so I just felt like that was a way more responsible way of presenting that. And I like that you do that with them, you know, getting them ready kind of for the inevitable. Sounds like we don't have a lot to say about it, but the likelihood that it's going to impact us in powerful ways.
And I think that this past year has demonstrated that even more deeply, just because of all the different types of traumas that have come up. And in many ways, I think some of our own individual traumas from our childhoods or other types of stressors have been elevated, have been exacerbated over this past year. And I think that this is actually an opportunity. This is an opportunity for us to do something different as we move forward, as we move into next year, as we start coming back together with other people. Let's talk about how we can do it in a way that is more supportive of one another. How can we improve our organizations for each other to make it a more welcoming place, a more understanding place, and that services be accepted. You know, my services for me, that if I need to take care of something, and your services for you, then your self-care is important. How can we encourage that and to continue to help the upper administration recognize the importance of that and how it can then better help their employees to have an overall better outcome in their agencies.
So if anybody has any comments or questions for Annette, if you want to put them in the chat, we'll be watching that as we go. While I'm waiting for you to do that, another thing that I thought of that I really like is that we all know of agencies, like I said, with those strict criterion for eligibility. And so you have to have a certain income level, you have to have certain diagnosis. If you miss 3 appointments, you get a letter saying that your case is closed. And so one thing that you and I have talked about from the beginning that I really appreciate how much you stress is that the students have to learn like persistence. And I know it's this fine balance between enabling and overcompensating, but you know, when you're talking about people who are from trauma, who are trying to survive and just manage the latest crisis, they don't always get places on time on the right day. And so that's not something that y'all, I've had some of your students call me and be like, I've called this person 11 times. Do you have any other ideas? And I'm like, that is like, who does that? I know we all do the best we can with the structures that we work within, but it's something different that y'all have some freedom and flexibility to continue on past those traditional measurements of engagement.
And I think that we also have been working hard to help the students understand the importance of building that engagement and building trust, and how sometimes that people may not trust them to begin with. And so they may not share very much to begin with, and that it's through the relationship that they build with the person and the time that they spend with that person that they can then have a better understanding of that person and what the needs are. And then as that trust builds, as that relationship builds, sometimes it's several weeks before clients will say, you know what, I could use help with X. Because they want to see if you're going to follow through. They want to see if you're going to show up. Because maybe their whole lives, they've never had anybody show up for them.
Yeah, I love that you're talking with them about that. Somebody said that she was a former App State non-traditional student, is thankful to hear about the support for those types of students, and grateful about the range of ages as well, which is another thing that I love. You know, usually we talk about who's the client, the identified client, and it might be that initially I make a referral to you because this kid may need some counseling around the death of a family member, and then you get in there and the mom needs some case management, and maybe we need to do some other things too. And so that's a really nice, since it's not a cost or billing, also that's another area of flexibility where you can kind of meet needs where they are rather than trying to make them fit into a box.
Yeah, and I think that when we're looking at the different types of folks that can come in, even though I'm a licensed clinical addiction specialist, I'm probably not going to be able to serve people that Daymark can, and I won't be. I'll just say that. I can't provide, you know, the outpatient treatment, the intensive outpatient treatment services that they provide, or some of the other substance abuse programs. But we can help with some of those early stages of prevention. Maybe they're just using an unhealthy way. They may not be fully dependent. If they find that they are, we may be then referring out to other agencies, or maybe they're in recovery and they just want to stay there and they need some support around that, but they also have some case management needs, or and same thing for mental illness. There are some things, if they are, again, if they are harmful to themselves or others, especially actively or recently, that might not be something that we can handle. But we've also worked in conjunction with other agencies before. If we know that they are getting services from one agency, but they need a little extra help maybe with case management, then we've partnered with that agency. Maybe they're doing the crisis and some of the more regular counseling. So we're okay with partnering in that way as well.
And for those of us who've been around a long time and remember back to the days of case management, that was such a significant loss to our community. And I've even heard Chad Slagle say, and had conversations with him, if you don't know, he's the CPS supervisor, about the loss of child case management was just a tremendous blow to keeping families together, because sometimes it's just too much for a parent to do by themselves. And so I love that aspect of case management, especially talking about filling a gap that currently really doesn't exist.
And that was one of the things that I had been thinking about even before I left New River and Daymark, and then I came to ASU. I kept saying, there has got to be a way we can harness students to help with this huge service gap. And so I'm really excited that 8 years later that we're doing that, that we have the opportunity to try to utilize this workforce that's ready to work, willing to work, wanting to work, and figure out ways that we can help people in the community at the same time.
Thank you for all that information. And as people are writing their final comments, is there anything that you wanted to mention that I didn't think to ask you about? We talked about staying well for clients, but for students too, and getting outside and those types of things. Anything else that I didn't ask you about you want to add before we go?
Not off the top of my head, but just like after a doctor's appointment, I'll think of it after we hang up, right?
Yeah, and so Annette had put in the chat her email or the website, the phone number, the email. I'm gonna put that, I'm gonna copy and paste it and put it one more time. And then if you have any last messages or comments for her, then you can type those and I'll copy those and put them in an email to her. Annette, we appreciate you taking time. I know it was just such a surprise to me to hear about what was going on there. And then as I've gotten more and more involved, I can't say the past year I have been a model referral source because we've all been so overwhelmed, but hopefully next year we'll get back on track. I appreciate you involving me. The network, that's one more thing I will add is the collaboration of the interns staying in touch with me and keeping me updated. There's releases signed, and so just keeping us posted. If a parent asks them to help them find a car, then they'll make sure I know that they're trying to help them find a way to get their lights paid so that we're not duplicating services. So they just do a really beautiful job with keeping us up to date on that.
Yeah, and I think I just want to mention that we are closed for the summer. I'm a 9-month employee, so Friday is my last day for a few months. So if you need to talk with me, just know that if you contact me in the next couple of days, if you want to talk to me specifically, the Ward JA1@AppState, that's my direct email. And then students will be checking the phone and the email, the group email come late August. So again, if you want to do contracts or things like that, it would be best to just reach me directly with the Ward JA1@AppState.
Sounds good. And one more note I'm going to turn off the recording. One more note for everybody here. We are